Africa and Russian-Ukrainian War. Beyond the Russian-NATO struggle for global hegemony, Africa and the war in Ukraine. Without jot of doubt, the Russia-Ukrainian war has just started, not simply because of the deepening of battles with increasing Euro-American military support for Ukraine and Russia's indication of preparedness to dam all consequences, but particularly also because of the nature of the profound causal factors of the war and the new hegemonic order that is in the making. One factor that is not seriously talked about in the recidivist effort at the derussification in Ukraine, the origin of which dates to more than 300 years ago. The effort was recently reactivated in the 1990s following efforts at rebranding of the central squares and main streets in several cities, towns, and villages by the post-Soviet governments. There were anti-Russian protests in 2004. The protests reached their crescendo in 2014 following Russian annexation of Crimea. In fact, the anti-Moscow sentiments are best imagined following Russian special military intervention in Ukraine on 24 February 2022. While Russia is pointing accusing fingers to Ukraine for erasing Russian culture and even a genocide of Russian-speaking Ukrainians, as well as describing Ukrainian culture as nationalist and parochial, Ukrainian President Volodymyr has simply responded that Russia herself is directly responsible for the derussification. In his words, "You are doing it in one generation's lifetime and forever. You are doing your best so that our people abandon the Russian language because Russia will be associated with you, only with you, with these explosions and killings, with your crimes." This explication is sarcastic, underscoring the point that is the Russian special military intervention that compels and that will continue to compel derussification in Ukraine. Put differently, efforts at derussification in Ukraine have the potential to continue for a longer time to come. The mere fact that there are millions of pro-Russian people in Ukraine means that internal contradictions cannot be quickly removed. Additionally, Russia appears to be targeting total victory at all costs, with the expectation that there might be a new strategic approach to the war come Monday, 9 May 2022, which is considered as Russia's remembrance of their Victory Day. It is important to recall here that on 22 June 1941, Russia was massively invaded by Nazi Germany, which said that all Slavs were less than humans. And true, Germany was winning the battles in the beginning, but because of her strategic miscalculation that the war would not take more than 3 months to bring the Russians to their knees, the Nazi government felt there was no need for provisions of winter materials. Most unfortunately, Russians resisted gallantly the invasion and by so doing prolonging the war through the winter period. Russia resisted the invasion at very high costs. Not less than 26.6 million Soviet lives were lost, of which 8,668,400 were military and about 10 million civilians. According to the Russian Academy of Sciences, Soviet population in June 1941 was 196,700,000. It was reduced to 170,500,000 as at 1 January 1946. More importantly, on 8 May 1945, the German forces surrendered to the Russian Red Army. The surrender took place on 8 May, Western European time, but on May 9th in the Soviet Union. Hence, Russians commemorate their Victory Day every May 9th since then. This sentiment of Victory Day cannot be carried to the current Ukrainian battlefield tomorrow, May 9th, 2022. Consequently, Africa must begin to evolve a long-term view of and policy on the war beyond the shooting war on the battlefields. Secondly, the African Union is not united to the extent of adopting a united front vis-à-vis the Russia-Ukrainian conflict. In fact, the disunity, as noted above, is not only manifested continentally but also at the national level. The case of South Africa is noteworthy. While President Cyril Ramaphosa holds the NATO responsible for the war, the main opposition leader of the Democratic Alliance in South Africa, John Steenhuisen, is hobnobbing with the Ukrainian president. John Steenhuisen MP went on a 6-day visit to Ukraine for an on-the-spot evaluation of the alleged devastating effects of the Russian invasion. In the words of Steenhuisen, "I am in Ukraine to see for myself and speak for my country. Someone must. It is strongly in South Africa's interest with a free world to come out hard against Russian aggression. In the era of fake news and propagandas, this is the only way to truly know what is happening." More importantly, the visit was prompted by the knock-off effect of the war on South Africa's own fuel, maize, cooking oil, and fertilizer prices, which will reach deep into the pockets of poor South Africans who can already not make ends meet. While questions can be raised as to why it should be the responsibility of an opposition to be speaking for his country outside of Africa, there can be no disputing the fact that South Africa appears to have adopted a dualist strategy towards the Russia-Ukrainian war. The dualist approach is to be able to speak to both sides or opening the communication lines to the two countries. Ramaphosa condemning the NATO while Steenhuisen pitches his camp with Ukraine. President Ramaphosa has argued that the war could have been avoided if NATO had heeded the warnings from amongst its leaders and officials over the years that its eastward expansion would lead to greater, not less, instability in the region. The pattern of Africa at the United Nations voting on condemnation of the Russian invasion is another reflection of the non-coordinated approach to the conflict. On 2nd March 2022, the UN General Assembly adopted a resolution which condemned Russia's aggression against Ukraine. It was voted by 141 out of the 193 member states of the organization. 35 countries abstained from voting. Of the 35 abstaining countries, 17 of them were from Africa. Eritrea was the only African country that voted against the resolution. South Africa was against the resolution, noting that she expected that the UN resolution would foremost welcome the commencement of dialogue between the parties and seek to create the conditions for these talks to succeed. Instead, the call for peaceful resolution through political dialogue is relegated to a single sentence close to the conclusion on the final text. This does not provide the encouragement and international backing that the parties need to continue with their efforts. The African Union wanted Russia to respect international law and Ukraine's sovereignty. As regards Nigeria, Nigerians voted to condemn Russian invasion but abstained from the vote suspending Russia from the UN Human Rights Council of the UNGA. A total of 93 countries voted in favor of suspension, 58 countries abstained, while 24 countries voted against. Algeria, Burundi, CAR, Congo, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Gabon, Mali, and Zimbabwe voted against the suspension. Apart from Nigeria, Eswatini, the Gambia, Ghana, Guinea-Bissau, Kenya, Lesotho, Madagascar, Mozambique, Namibia, Niger, Senegal, South Africa, South Sudan, Togo, and Uganda abstained from voting. Thus, African countries have not only shown an uncoordinated and uncommon approach to the Russia-Ukrainian war, but also an attitudinal non-alignment. And the reasons cannot be far-fetched. A country like Egypt that wet importations from Russia and Ukraine were to the tune of 45% cannot be expected to take sides. In fact, the United States Institute of Peace has it that there is an impending food scarcity in Africa based on the consideration that in 2020 alone, Africa $4 billion and $2.9 billion worth of agricultural products respectively from Russia and Ukraine. And with the ongoing Russia-Ukrainian war, prices of corn, wheat, and soybeans have surged. And more disturbingly, the institute also says that about 20 million people in the Sahel and West Africa do not have access to sufficient food. This is apart from the impact on oil exploration activities by Luke Oil and Tatneft oil companies, particularly in the Gulf of Guinea, Cameroon, Congo-Kinshasa, Equatorial Guinea, and Nigeria, which are likely to be suspected. How does Africa respond to these challenges? How does Amazonia continue to fight her way out of this chaos? Gab Ellison reporting for Undaunted, ABC Amber News.